Cricket et al. It's a website. It's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
And Peter Lawler over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast at the conclusion of the first test match in Bridgetown, which has ended in a screaming heap with 16 wickets on the final day after 14 on the first and 10 on the second, with Australia triumphant by 159 runs. Peter Lawler is reclining on the outfield. He's looking like a very relaxed man. I dare say a little while ago he wasn't so relaxed. He was thinking about the possibility of having to come back for another day. But now he's got 2 days off.
I have got 2 days off, but I reckon I've worked 2 days in one here. I got to drag on and on and on that game. Yeah. It was a little bit like that World Cup final that Australia won in the dark.
Indeed. Same ground, 2007.
Yep, the umpires were desperate not to come back. They extended play for an hour and 13 minutes when the Windies eight down. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. They gave LBs that were overturned on DRS. Sam Constas dropped the catch. And then the pigeon ran out of batteries on the pitch. I've never seen a pigeon refuse to move.
Where was Bill Lawry when you needed him?
Took 5 minutes to get the pigeon off the pitch, but eventually Australia prevailed, and what have they won it by? 159 runs. It probably should have won it by 200 runs, but for some long-handled batting at the end by Shamar Joseph, who hit some towering sixes and was taking the piss, to be frank. But good day's cricket. I was just lying here, and I think you could hear it too, as Pat Cummins was doing the post-play interviews on the other side of the ground. He said the game was in the balance when they arrived this morning. They weren't that far in front. They have a lot of runs in hand, wickets in hand, but a trio of half centuries from the middlemen has saved them, haven't they? 360s from Travis Head, Bo Webster, and Alex Carey eventually put the Australians 300 runs in front. So they got rock and roll for 310, which is a fairly good score considering that the previous innings they were out for 180 and that the West Indies had been out for 190 in their first innings.
Well, there's the value of Head, isn't it? You know, he's picked up 250s in a low-scoring game, and, you know, in low-scoring games, you know, you've often got fielders in attacking positions, and that's when Head's at his most dangerous. You know, he can take the game away from you so quickly. Webster just looks such a sensible cricketer. He's made a 100-ball 50. Carey's made a 40-ball 50. So they've tackled the game according to their own lights. It is interesting, though. I would say that they're the most reliable components of their batting because they're all batting in their specialist positions. You know, they're batting exactly where they should in the order 5, 6, and 7. And that doesn't apply to the rest of the order. The rest of the order is just a dog's breakfast at the moment.
It is a dog's breakfast at the moment, and had they lost here, there would have been, it would have been a fully fledged crisis, according to the commentators. That word was already floating around this morning.
Was it?
Ian Healy's calling for Divenuto to be sacked and all sorts of things going on there. Look. They avoided that examination occurring in the immediate future, but perhaps they've just delayed it. The questions about that top order haven't yet been answered. Gee, the lights going out here, aren't they? I'm in the dark, Gideon.
Oh yeah, very moody, very atmospheric.
Yeah.
If that last light goes,
yep. You won't be able to see me at all. So their asses were saved in the end. But Steve Smith arrives back tomorrow. That might give a little bit more solidity to the top order. But, the questions remain about Green and Constas, but we've asked those questions before. And look, what this win does do is it takes the pressure off a little bit. Sure. It allows the side to go into the second and the third tests with the same lineup. It allows them to be patient, and perhaps it'll make the public and the commentators a little bit more patient too. I mean, it was an emphatic win in the end, and you're right. Travis Head was outstanding with those 2 half centuries. He's won the Player of the Match. Gideon, that's his 10th Player of the Match award I think about 50 7 tests, is it?
Yeah,
That's an incredible rate. I mean, I looked through, it's in the copy today, but if you look through, his frequency is unrivaled. Hayden got 10 from 103 tests, Border 11 from 156 tests, McGrath 11 from 134 tests. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, Warren's got the most, but 17 from 145 tests. At this rate, Travis Head will lap those players.
Yeah.
You could argue there's probably never been a more critical batter in an Australian lineup.
Yeah. And you have to say that he's also doing this in a bowler-friendly period. You know, commonly I think that bowlers are probably getting a higher proportion of Man of the Match awards now than at any stage.
Yeah.
So Head is working against that trend, and his value at number 5. You probably just wouldn't move him. The formula now works so well. And Carey did the same today. You know, the old firm. That was exactly the kind of innings that the circumstances called for. I think one thing to say about the pitch here, and it's worth saying in relation to the West Indies innings, is it clearly got a lot easier to bat after the first 20 to 25 overs, which is probably why John Campbell shot in the West Indies second innings is so culpable, because if he actually, I think they were 1 for 47 at that point off 10, they were flying. And Campbell has this complete brain fade, and then from there the West Indies lose 6 for 26 in 13 overs. So, you know, when you're in, you just got to make sure that you come out the other side, because it's hard to get in here. And he's just given it away. You know, here's a guy who's 31. He's played 20 test matches and he's made 3 50s. He often looks the part. He's got not bad technique. He's got a few shots, but you know, there's a reason that he averages 20, which is that he's pretty stupid. And he was stupid again today.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure I totally agree with you on that. I really liked the pitch in this match, and it was very challenging, at least for the first day and a half. And yes, you're right. I mean, we saw it when the West Indies batted, didn't we, on day 2, that batting against that older ball was easy. But when Travis Head was dismissed by, it was Joseph, wasn't it, today? It was, it's raining. God help us. Why am I doing outdoor podcast?
I'm going to take my dressing gown off in sympathy.
Head was undone by a ball that was on what I've described as on a submarine mission. It just speared low. It knocked him off his feet. You know, he lost his balance trying to get his bat down on that one, and he got up and grinned. And I swear that the bowlers up on the Sir Garfield Sodas Pavilion balcony grinned too, because you just knew that this was the ideal pitch and these were the ideal conditions for Josh Hazlewood to bowl in, and also Pat Cummins with the new ball, because that ball was starting to keep low regularly, and I'm going to have to move inside or my laptop's going to drown.
Okay.
Hang in there.
Yeah. I will. Just keep talking.
Oh, yeah, it's easier said than done. Hang on.
The great thing is that under these circumstances, you can rely on Saley, Pete. Did you see what I did there?
Oh, stop it. Off you go, kids.
Any excuse will do.
Yeah, go on.
All right, now let's just watch the drama unfold as Peter Lalor pulls out.
It was interesting. I was I went and watched some of the last session from down on the boundary line, and someone from the Australian camp came and sat with me, have a bit of a chat during the session. I thought, this is unusual. He's just hanging around, and he explained that Marnus was driving everybody mad on the bench. Right. They could only take him in so much. Apparently at that point of the match, he was discussing Shield matches from 13 years ago in minute detail, saying no. Sorry, I've lost plot here. So anyway, it was good to see Marnus on the field.
Can you get Marnus to do something about that bin?
I'm going to have to move again. This is just too noisy. Right. Sorry.
Yep.
What else, Gideon?
What can we say about the bowling in this Test match? I mean, it's been pretty good. It's been outstanding. There's been 11 catches dropped. You can't complain about the bowlers not doing their job here. Australia had the good fortune, I think, that second innings, their batters just gave their bowlers a bit more of a respite that they've been used to lately. They certainly came out fresh when the West Indies began their chase.
Look, I think both bowling attacks. I mean, the Australian attack is obviously roll gold, and that West Indies attack, I like the look of all of them. But the wicket assisted them. I mean, that was a difficult wicket to bat on the first 2 days. It was a good wicket. Never going to complain about a 3-day test, Gideon.
No. Hazlewood's taken his 13th fifer in his 73rd test, and Shamar Joseph his 4th fifer in his 9th. That's a pretty notable record for a guy who's struggled with his fitness so far in his career, and he's capped it off with a blazing innings towards the end. I mean, ideal kind of scenario for a batter like Shamar Joseph to come in. I mean, I did enjoy seeing him bat without any headgear tonight, Pete. You don't often see that in Test cricket anymore. A guy without a cap, without a helmet, without a sun hat. He looked a bit like, Neil Harvey style. He hit 4 sixes. He was clearly enjoying himself. Let's hope that his spirit is infectious in that West Indian camp.
I recall that when he came to Australia, he didn't actually own he didn't actually have enough equipment and had to go out to buy is it an arm guard? Is that what you call it? I've got no words left. It's so late here. Yeah. I think Bharat took him out shopping to get some extra cricket gear. So there's a chance that maybe he doesn't own a helmet.
Well, he certainly deserves a bat sponsor today. He hit the ball beautifully and cleanly. Brandon King got a good one. And in his first test, he'd actually he was well caught in the gully by Cameron Green, who'd actually earlier dropped one, quite a straightforward one. And the other straightforward today, I thought, was Sam Constas's. That was Joseph, wasn't it, off Hazlewood out at deep square leg.
Look, in his favour, Gideon, the sun at that point was very low, just above the Greenwich Haynes stand and right in his eyes. I mean, So
why has he got his sunglasses on the peak of his cap? Why aren't they down? What's the point of wearing them?
Is that what he was doing, was he?
Yeah. He's got to look like the cool kids. He's an ordinary fielder, Constance. He's ended up taking up a couple of catches today, but I don't think he's got a record that deserves recognition. Clearly, he's being picked on promise, but learning your way in Test cricket, I think, is a huge ask of any young player. Anyway, we shall see. There's plenty of opportunity to discuss Sam Constas in the coming days. When you've got 2 days off, it's time for a Constas think piece.
Yeah, thanks. There might be one of those coming. The Australians, it's 5 to 7 at night here in the West Indies, and you'd think that the Australians would be in the rooms getting among the beers, but not all of them. As I look out there, I think it's Sean Abbott and Scott Boland are having a centre net practice, bowling. And so the coaches, I've got to say, the Australian coaches work very bloody hard. And particularly the aforementioned Michael Divenuto. I don't think anybody's ever given so many throwdowns in cricket as that man has. And it must have been a reasonable week for him without Steve Smith around. But of course, unfortunately, Marnus is out of the 11, so he's probably demanding 5 times as many throwdowns while the game's proceeding. But Matthew Wade's out there with the gloves because Matthew Wade is an assistant coach on this tour. So he's standing in as wicket keeper while the pair bowl. There's at least one light still on at the ground.
Yeah, so no, I guess the next 2 days they would plan on having entirely off. Did it actually remind me, Pete? Were you at the Lord's Test match in 2013 on that last day?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
No.
I can remember they took the extra half hour for England to polish Australia off, and God knows James Pattinson played very well with Ryan Harris, and they got down to the last over. And if they survived one more ball, I think we had to come back the following day. And the whole press box was absolutely fuming about this. They'd all planned golf for the following day. They're all going to the pub. And when Swan hit Pattinson on the front pad, the whole press box went up in a peal. when the umpire's finger went up, there was a roar of approval.
Yeah, I think the mood was like that in the press box tonight, although I was pretty busy at the time. Everybody's got their heart set on going to a race meet here tomorrow. And I must admit, I'm not a horse racing man, but the idea of going to horse racing in Barbados is pretty appealing because the racetrack is just up next to the George Washington Cafe where I have breakfast in the morning, and it's open. It's like a community cricket field. It looks really good. And every morning when I go down to the beach to have a bit of a swim before coming to play, there's at least 15 to 20 horses on the beach sort of going for swims and doing all that sort of stuff. They love their horses in this part of the world.
Right. Interesting.
I know Mikey Holding's not from here, but I know Michael Holding, he was a big horse racing man.
Yep, still is.
What's got the Caribbean into horse racing? I must look into that. That might be a think piece for their days off, Gideon.
I tell you what, I went looking for a think piece today. And this is the generosity of Test cricket, that there are lulls and longeurs where you have a chance to look at Test matches past.
Hang on a minute. Yeah. You said today. You've only been up for an hour.
Well, actually, I had time to read Pat Landsberger's The Kangaroo Conquers, I'll have you know. So I looked back at the Bridgetown Test match of 1955, and on the corresponding day, West Indies batted all day and didn't lose a wicket. It's that famous stand between Dennis Atkinson and Claremont de Pisa, where they put on 348 for the 7th wickets. It's still the world 7th wicket Test partnership record. It's the second oldest in the record books, and those two batted for the entire day without, I think, even giving a chance. It's a remarkable day of Test cricket. It shows you how flat the wickets must have been in the West Indies in those days, because Australia had Lindwall and Miller and Benno. It was a quality attack, but they just could not break through.
Well, if that had happened today, Lindwall, Miller and Benno's careers would be in doubt. Everybody with a keyboard would be demanding that they're dropped, they're past it, they're not up to it, someone else could do a better job.
I tell you the other interesting thing in this chapter, because in those days tour books were quite expansive, and basically they became the official record. There was nothing on television, you couldn't listen to it on radio, so basically the tour book was the genre that kind of was the recording angel for Test cricket. And Australia actually had one supporter in Barbados. And
really?
I looked him up. He was a man called Maurice Visbord, 1905 to 1972. When he was 28 years old, he was crippled when he fell from a horse. And his pleasure for the rest of his life was to travel the world watching Australia play cricket. He was hugely popular with the Australian players. He was a very good friend of Keith Miller's. And if anyone out there has any connection to Maurice Visbord, I know that it's very unlikely. I would like to hear more about him. There is a photograph of him in the Australian Sports Museum, which I'll have to go and have a look at. That he was the son of a well-to-do Melbourne Jewish family, but I don't know very much more about him than that. And but he features in Pat Landsberger's The Kangaroo Conquers,
which Gideon's holding up for all our podcast listeners.
I was just about to say, wouldn't Saley have been useful to Maurice Visbord? But apparently we don't have a live read today.
Well, what I'm wondering about is, so I'm assuming he's in a wheelchair, is he?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
In a wheelchair, it's got to be very difficult in those days. I mean, handicap access was not a thing until more recent times. And I assume that he's travelling by a ship.
Well, I assume he must have been. Yeah.
Sure.
I do remember
travelling alone. Yeah.
Yeah. He came actually, he came with his nursing sister. Okay, I'm going to read you the relevant passage here. Maurice Visbord was one of the most permanent members of the Australian camp. Crippled when he fell from a horse many years ago, Mr. Visbord is the most loyal of Australian supporters. With his nursing sister, Mary Hamilton, he had become almost as familiar to West Indies as had the Australians themselves. Next to watching cricket, Mr. Visbord's main relaxation is to give birth to most alarming puns. Miss Hamilton is a dancer of some note and is still spoken about in bated breath by those who frequent the Carib a few miles outside Georgetown.
So his nurse is a dancer, and he's giving birth to
alarming puns.
Alarming puns.
Yes.
So he's got a nurse. Still, perhaps she was very strong too.
Perhaps she was.
Yeah.
So there were Australian cricket tourists even before Lukey Sparrow. Just thought you'd like to know that.
God, there's quite a number of tour groups here. I may have mentioned that before. As Jason Gillespie's tour group is here. Ken Peace's tour group is here. Luke Sparrow's tour group is here. Australian sports tours are here. I think I might actually be doing a function for them later in the tour.
Gee, right. Okay.
And there's a couple of others as well.
Well, without them, there'd be no show without Punch, would there?
Yeah. Gideon, a little like the West Indies on the last day. I'm running out of puff here.
Okay. All right. Well, look, it's been great to have you with us these past 3 days on Cricket et al. Thank you very much for our support. It means a lot to us. It means that Pete is there. And we have an opportunity to continue the pod. Pete has now 2 days off in Barbados before he heads on to the second test match. That's all we've got time for on Cricket et al. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.